Welcome to the first video for Math 126, College Algebra. I'm Dr. J.T. Hurd. I'm going to be your instructor for this class. Our first video is order of operations. So I'm hoping that you hear that name and you're thinking to yourself, man, I've seen that a million times. This is old stuff, review stuff. The way this class is set up is your first several videos or your first several sections of the class are going to be a review of stuff that we hope that you've seen before. If you haven't, that's okay. We're going to start from the ground up and work as we go along. If you have seen it before, we're going to try and get into the intricacies of all these different rules so that hopefully you'll catch something that, oh, I didn't realize that when I had seen order of operations or whatever other topic we look at. So I'm going to start off by talking about what exactly is order of operations. So order of operations is an agreement between everybody who's trying to do math as to what operation, which step we're supposed to do first. So for instance, if I write down 3 times 2 to the power 3 plus 1. So this is a multiplication, this is an exponent, and this is an addition. I want to make sure that everybody agrees as to what we're supposed to do first. So it wouldn't be good if I plugged this in a calculator and a calculator gave me one answer, I did it by hand and got a different answer, and each person in the class did it by hand and got maybe slightly different answers as well. So we want to make sure everybody gets the same answer. And so order of operations is a series of which step are we supposed to do first. And so the first thing we're always supposed to do is look for parentheses. And I'm just going to write down all of the steps of the typical order of operations. It's parentheses, exponents, multiply, or multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And you've probably had to memorize this list of steps before. Some people memorize it using the first letters. PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. Other people use an anagram. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. However you want to memorize it, it's not important, but these are the order of the steps that mathematicians and people doing math have agreed on as to what's supposed to happen first. So if I look at my example, I first look and see, are there any parentheses? Because those are supposed to happen first. That's the first in my list of order of operations. And I don't see any parentheses, which is kind of a trick, because there is actually something that would be categorized as parentheses. When we say parentheses, really we mean any kind of grouping. And so when I look at this, there is actually something that's grouped. The 3 plus 1 is grouped together. Both the 3 and the plus 1 are inside the exponent of the 2. So that hints to me that maybe this thing that I have written is the same as 3 times 2 to the power, parentheses, 3 plus 1. So there's going to be times where things are written together and we're supposed to realize, oh, there's hidden or implied parentheses there. I'll show you some more examples of implied parentheses in just a second. But let's see if we can calculate this out. Let's see, 3 plus 1 would be 4. That's the operation inside the parentheses. I always do inside the parentheses first. And then now I see a multiplication and I see an exponent. And we're supposed to do exponents before we do multiplications, because exponents happens above multiplication in our list of steps, our prioritization of what goes first. And so I guess I'm supposed to do the exponent next. And 2 to the 4th power means 2 times itself 4 times. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 would end up being 16. I'm not going to beat to death exponents. We're going to talk more about exponents later. For now, we'll say it's 3 times 16, which I believe is 48. Okay, let's do one more example of an implied parentheses. Okay, so the other example I want to look at is 2 plus 2 over 3. Again, it kind of looks like there's an implied parentheses or there's a grouping. We don't actually have parentheses in the problem, but we have grouped the 2 plus 2. They're all on top of the division line, which seems to me like that's supposed to mean that that's implied that there should be a parentheses there, or that we're grouping that 2 plus 2 together before we worry about dividing by 3. So this is not the same as if I were to write 2 plus 2/3. Those two things don't look the same to me, just a visual check. So I think they're not supposed to mean the same thing, or not necessarily mean the same thing. Maybe they both work out to the same decimal. But let's see. Instead, I think what this is trying to say is 2 plus 2 goes together, and then we divide by 3. So again, implied parentheses, and this is really common in fractions specifically because you can always have an operation as your, you always have to worry about figuring out what the numerator is, figuring out what the denominator is before you do the division of a fraction. So in this case, 2 plus 2 would be the first operation I would do. 2 plus 2 would give me 4. And then I would worry about division, either leave it as a fraction 4/3, or I could rewrite it as a proper fraction 1 1/3, or I could turn it into a decimal using a calculator or something like that, and it would give me 1.333, or 1.3 repeating. So realistically, either of these I think is a fine answer for calculating the expression that I started off with. So the instructions would say something like simplify or calculate 2 plus 2 over 3, and so the answer would be 4/3 or 1.3 repeating.